Okay, now let's talk about an SQL. So in order to work on DB2, so first we need to learn SQL. SQL is nothing but it's a structured query language. So in this we have three different concepts. One we call it as a DDL, and other is called as a DML, and the next is called as a DCL. So DDL stands for data definition language, DML data manipulation, and data control. Okay, so these three plays a different key roles. So first we'll get started with the DDL. So when we say DDL, the name itself, I'm telling it as data definition language. So you have to define your data, right? So how do you define your data? By creating a table. Okay, first you will be creating a table by assigning some attributes or some properties of it. When you are defining a table, first thing what you need to know, so you need to know the fields, right? So you need to know, for example, let me just say like I'm going to create a table for an employee. So what are the employee fields it will have, that is attributes that it can have: employee number, employee names, salary, department number, phone numbers, address, so on, right? So using a create command, so we are going to create a table first. Then after that, let's say today you have created some table, and then tomorrow you feel like, okay man, I missed one of the fields, so then can I alter this table? Yes, you have an option in DDL to alter the table by using an alter command. Then at the same time, later on you realize that after using this table for a couple of months, then you noticed that okay, or maybe a couple of years, notice that okay, there is a specific field which says, let's say like you have defined address lines as 1 2 3 4 5 6. Then you feel like okay, address line 6 is not at all used by anyone, so then you can just remove that address 6 column which is not at all used. Okay, so that way you can drop the columns as well. So basically, so in DDL, so DDL is nothing but it's a data definition language, so which is used to create a table, which can alter a table, and you can also drop a table. So this I'm going to show you practically all these three concepts. So listen to my next videos very carefully. So I'm going to train completely on the SQL part first. First we will work on the foreground, and then we'll go to the actual application programming. So data manipulation. So now you have earlier using DDL, so you have created the table, you have altered the table, and then you have dropped the table or dropped the fields, right? So now since you have the tables readily available, now you need to write some data to that particular table, right? So you will not keep empty, so you need to insert, I mean to say, so you have constructed a building, so within that you have to decorate your building, right? So you have to partition the rooms, you need to bring all the items, and you need to store everything. So that's what we are trying to do. It's now we have created a table, so now we need to insert some data into the table. So that comes under data manipulation. So you are trying to manipulate the data, right? The first command that comes here is insert into data table name, followed by some data. Then after inserting the data, you may want to try an operation that is delete. You want specific records to be deleted, so based on some condition, so you don't want it. I'm taking an example, I'm a live example of, simple example of a building itself, right? So when you want to construct a building, so what you do, first you purchase a land, then after that you define the properties, you will have a plan, and then you will start constructing it, right? So that comes under this data definition. So first you will be defining everything, you create the complete setup, so you have the pillars and you have the complete floors created. Let's say like you have 2 floors you have created, then after that you need to fill that, right? You need to insert, you need to partition, and you have to purchase, and you have to purchase the items, so you have to purchase specific items and so on, right? So that's the way we have inserted some records into the table. Then finally you want to delete, then later on you realize that okay, I don't want to use any of the records, so then you want to delete it. Yes, after using it for a couple of months in the room, so in your home itself, you think like, okay, I don't want these items, so then you will be deleting it. So you can use the delete operations to delete the data from the table, and you can also update if you want to change something. So you can modify, so that is for updating the data, so based on some logic. For example, an employee table, so every year you have an appraisal, so they wanted to you are getting a hike of 5% or 10%, then you will be using an update command there, right? Select is to see who all the candidates are present today, or who all the candidates belongs to this project, X project or Y project, or who all the employees who are on leave from past 1 week. So all these kind of filtering of information that we can get it using a select query. Then finally we have a DCL, which is a DBA role, where he can grant an access to create or alter or drop or to insert the data into the table or to delete or to update. So DCL commands is purely a DBA role, so he will grant an access to any of the DDL or any of the DML to us, and also he has a right to revoke after certain operations has been performed, or if after getting released from that particular project or the task is completed. So guys, so these are the different things that we will be doing within the SQL. So if you're perfect with all this, then you are very good in writing the SQL queries. So I'll be explaining in a very simple way, which will be completely a practical project oriented based training that I am giving. It's not something that I will present a text, then that is not over. So I'll be connecting to the mainframe, I'll practice, and I'll show you how the tables are created, how we insert the data into the table, and also I'm going to explain you the application programming part as well. Okay, so stay tuned. So in the next video I'll be explaining about what are the tools that we are gonna use in order to practice the SQL queries. Okay, now let's look at the tools that we can use in order to practice the SQL part. So in foreground, that is we can use QMF and DB2I. So these are the two tools that are available on the mainframe system that we can use it. You can run either a QMF or a DB2 spoofy. So let's see what QMF will do. QMF tool is used for testing purposes mainly. So you can only test small functions here. So like creating a table and deleting a table, or not deleting a records, and you can drop a table or a column. So all the DDL and the DML operations you can perform. DCL also you can try if you have an access. So why? Because if you're working in a real time and you're watching this video, so then absolutely you may or may not be having an access if you're purchasing online of any of the tools. If you're purchasing this ID online, so maybe you will have all the options enabled and you can practice with that. To make sure the table is first thing is in real time what we do, I'll explain. So in real time why we use QMF tool is, so first is for testing purpose mainly, so to check whether that particular table is created or not. When you're working on a specific project, my requirement is to create some table and insert some data into the table. Okay, when it comes for the testing part, so what we do is we connect to the table and we'll see okay whether this table is created or not. Then later on, yes, the table has the data or not, we'll verify, and we'll also check the structure of the data, and then we run the sample test queries before we insert into the application program. As a developer, if I want to make sure like okay the table has there and it has a proper data inside it, then I'll apply a logic. That particular piece of code I'll take it and I'll paste it in the application program, and we'll try to execute that. So how the tool looks? The tool looks like this. Okay, and you will be operating using functions over here. So QMF stands for Query Management Facility, right? So then another one we have is a DB2I, Within a DB2I, you have an option called as spoofy. Spoofy stands for SQL processing using file inputs. The difference between QMF and spoofy is in QMF you can write a limited queries, and once you come out of from that panel, from that window, all the queries that you have tested, it will be gone. You cannot store there. Whereas in spoofy, you can store all the queries that you are going to practice within a member. Okay, so this is a DB2 interactive facility we call, which runs under TSO ISPF. It is a facility for executing SQL statements interactively, and input to spoofy is going to be a member of a PDS containing the SQL statements to be executed. The output of the query executed is also stored in the sequential file. Okay, how the screen looks? The screen looks in this way. So where on the home screen, you can say the TSO panel, so you will be finding a DB2I option. Just you need to select that specific option, maybe 10 or 12 based on the version of the operating system or based on the vendor that you are using, so that the number may change. But once you connect it to DB2I, this will be the screen, so where you can see all the operations and the options. The spoofy is a process to, in order to run the SQL statements, you'll be using spoofy. DCL gen is to generate the copybook. If you want to compile your program, you can do it from here. Bind, run, and all the DB2 commands that you wanted to use, or the DB2 utilities you wanted to try, you can use it. And also you have an option to connect to QMF as well. Okay, so this will be the screen. So now this is how it looks when I connect to spoofy, right? So here we specify an input where we write the queries, and here specify the output where the result is stored, right? So with that, so we have covered all the two tools, that is QMF and spoofy. It's all about the introduction. Then next, in the upcoming video, we'll get started with the DDL commands. So where we'll try to create a table, we'll alter a table, and we'll try to drop a table as well. Okay, now let's get started with the DDL operations. So different DDL commands. So in the introduction to SQL, I have explained about the various DDL commands that we have: create, alter, and drop, right? So here is a simple example of or I can say syntax. Basically, create keyword that you have to use, and table name, and followed by the variables. Say, when I say variables, it's fields or attributes: employee number, integer type, employee name, varchar. And then alter is to alter the table name. So for example, in here, employee salary was not added when we have created the table, so you can add it using an alter command: alter table name, add an additional fields using this the field attributes. Then if you want to drop a table, so you can drop a table using a drop table name command. So in application programs, it should be using we will be using exec SQL and end exec. So now let's look at creating a table by connecting to mainframe. Okay, so within here, what do we have? So here you can see different options. Here I see that 17 as an option to connect to this. So now I am connected to QMF environment. So here you have F1 for help, F2 to list, F3 to end, F4 to show, F5 chart, F6 query, retrieve, and all these options are there, right? So we'll go maximum, we use only one thing, that is query. So press F6. Okay, now this is the SQL query panel where you can enter your queries, right? The query that I am entering is to create a table. So create table, let's say customer. The customer name is as CUST. So instead of customer, I'm naming it as cust. So what are the different fields that we have? Customer ID, and what is the data type? It's an integer, and I'm telling it as a not null. Not null is also an attribute that we pass to this particular field. So we are making sure that there are no null values assigned to this particular field. Okay, and another one is customer name, and which is of character data type. So character data types, how many bytes it is holding? 20 bytes. And the next one is customer address. So let me continue here. Customer address. So varchar, customer address is of varchar and it's of 25 bytes. Okay, so this is also I'm making it as not null. Okay, so then comma, then what else we have to do? Let's make customer ID as a primary key. So to explain what is primary key, it's in a unique index, so which makes which will, if you are defining a primary key, so it will not allow any duplicates to be entered within this table. So you need to define a primary key, so that act as a primary key. Customer ID is a primary key for this primary key with customer, making customer ID as a primary key over there, right? So now let's close this. And where are you storing this table? The tables are stored in where? The tables are stored in a table space, and within a database you have a table space. So what is the database name? I have DBMATE1. So within a database you will be having a different database. For test environment you will be having a test database. For production, for model, you will be having a different databases. So you need to know the table database and the table space that you are going to use. TSMATEKF. Okay, so this is what we need to know. So one is a database name and the table space name where you are storing the table. So we have just written a create command within the DDL. So how do we run this here? So you have an option called as 2 equal to run, right? So 2 is nothing but it's a function key on your keyboard. Press F2. So now it should say okay, running your query changed the database. So that's mean your query has been successfully completed. So now if you want to comment this, just type 2 hyphens here, 2 hyphens. Okay, so now next step would be creating an index for this primary key, right? So whenever you are using a primary key within the table creation, you need to create a index for this. If you remember when we were discussing when you are listening to the topics of a VSAM, so we had an index created, right? The recording key, like data component, index component, we had that one, right? So the ID cams was creating that, whereas for here when you are creating a database, table within this table space or database, so we have to create a separately. So how do we create that? Let's look at here. So now create, okay, what we are trying to create? We are trying to create a unique index with the name as, let's say, CUST-INDX. okay, I'm making it as customer index. For customer ID I'm creating an index. Okay, let's make it as index. Okay, on which table you are creating? On customer table, CUST, and for which field? Customer ID, right? So this is how we create an index. It will store as a separate entry in the index. So it is similar, I can say, like for example, let me take an Excel here. Okay, for example, so how many fields we had here? So what are the different fields we had? Customer ID, CUST, customer underscore ID. Then what we had? Customer name, and then we had customer address, right? So these are the 3 fields that we had. Let's say customer ID is something 1001 and 1002, 1003, and customer name is, let's say, like Anthony, John, Robert. Okay, let's say it's a New York, New Jersey, and let's say Texas. Okay, so these are the 3 records that we have entered, and for this we will be having an index record created with customer ID named as 1002 or 1001 or 1003. So it creates a connection here. Okay, so what happens is this customer index is referenced to this, so this whenever it is, so that's how it is linked. Okay, so when we are trying to retrieve any information, first it will go to the index file and then it will check for that particular key is available or not. So based on that it will get the data from this particular table and it will give you. So if you are making this way, right, so the fetching of the information will be much faster. Okay, so if you don't have any primary key defined, so this is a primary key, right? So if you don't have a primary key defined, then no need of creating a indexer table again, so indexing again. Okay, so with that, so what all how do we run this? Press F2. So now you can see, okay, running your query, change the database. That means you have successfully created your query. Okay, so now we have created a table for the customer and then we have defined an index as well. In the next video I'm going to show you how do we alter the table. Okay, now let's look at altering the table. So that is alter table, table name, add some amount. Okay, so let me connect to this. Okay, so how many fields we have so far? So customer ID, customer name and customer address is there, right? So let me do this first, and I wanted to add another field name as customer record date. Okay, some transaction date or some transaction date. Okay, so now I wanted a transaction date to be entered. Okay, and also some amount available for that particular customer. Okay, total for that particular customer, what is the total amount it has, right? So let us do that. Alter table, CUST, add. So I'm trying to alter the table for the customer. What I'm going to add, I'm going to add a new type. That is, first one is customer transaction date, CUST TRANS, and date. What type it is? It is a date type, so I'm going to give it as a date. And here another option we have. So if you make it as a default, so when we are entering when we are trying to insert the record, by default a system only will assign a date. If you are not specifying a default, you have to enter the date. So now press F2. So now you can see, okay, running your query, change the database. Okay, and another important point to be noted here, when you are using a default, right, so you can also, if when you are using default for date, means it will add a system date when some record is entered. For example, when you are trying to insert a record. Okay, for example, I'm entering a new record 1004, right? So some, let's say let me write my name, Kumar, and let's say Florida. Let's say I'm living in Florida, and the date, if I'm not entering any date, some, let's say like 20,000, and when I'm entering this record, right, after the insertion of the date record, so it may write the date by default. Okay, date by default. If I'm not entering, if you are entering, it will take that particular date. If you are not entering, it will take the default date. And also for customer amount, if you have specified it as default, if you have specified for the customer amount as a default, so then it will add, if you are not entering any values, so it will add zeros there. And whereas for the data type as char or varchar, it will add a spaces there. Okay, it's a default. If you are not entering, normally it will add, if you keep it as a blank and if you don't use a default, so then it will be treated as some null values. So null values are very dangerous, especially for the numeric fields when you're trying to calculate. So if you're trying to combine 100 plus 200 plus null, so it will throw an error or it will give you some wrong results. Okay, so now what we have added a field of customer transaction date. Let's also add customer amount as well. Okay, so let's take alter alter table customer, add customer amount, right? Which is of which field we are taking now? I'm taking it as a integer field, so let's take it as integer, or let's take number. Let's say its maximum is 8 digits and decimal points as 2. Okay, then press F2. SQL error, so the query did not run. So did I miss anything? Alter table customer amount, it's of number type. Okay, let's do this. Okay, it is not allowing. Okay, so let me take it as integer for now. Okay, press F2. Okay, now you have the customer amount added to this. Okay, so now I wanted to see this how many fields are exactly the fields are added or not. Select star from customer, right? Press F2. Now you can see you have the customer ID, customer name, customer address, customer transaction date, and customer amount. So you can see all the fields are added. Again press F6. If you press F3, it will go exit out of this. Press F6 again, so that you will be entering into the SQL query screen. So with that said, so we have completed the two most important commands statements. That is, one is a create, to create a table. Here we have learned about the primary key and index and a unique index, and we here next thing is we have tried to add a new fields, and we have learned the concept of default, how it can be added. Okay, in the next part we'll see about dropping the table. Next one is to drop a table. So drop command is used to drop a table. So let's connect to mainframe and see. So for example, let me say I have select star from customer. Okay, F2. Right, F2 to run. So I don't know, it came to offline. Let me connect back. So now since that has been disconnected, so I hope that queries will be not saved there, because it reconnected established. Okay, now we need to run the query F2. So now you can see these are the different fields that are there. For press F6 to come back to the SQL query scene. This is for custom. I will try to check the same for customer, which I have created in the past. F2. Yes, these two have some fields, but there is no data here. Press F6 to come back. So now I'll try to delete this particular table. Drop. Okay, I'm going sequence. Drop table customer. Let's see if it works. Now it says your run command will drop something from the database. So since this table is stored in a table space, where table space is stored in a database. Do you want to make this change? Yes, make the changes permanent in the database. No, restore the database to what it was before the query was run. Make no changes. I wanted to delete, so press done. Now okay, running your query, change the database, right? So this has completed that, and let me see, verify, but select star from customer, what it will say, we'll see. F2. So now it says like mat.customer could not be found. So that means the table got completely dropped. Okay, so these are the three basic commands that we'll be using as part of the DDL, that is data definition language. So what has been covered so far? Create, alter, and drop, right? So these are the three important things that we have covered so far. And alter, and we also saw about the by default and the importance of it. Again I repeat, by default it is used to assign the default value of a particular field when the data is not passed to it, right? So these are the things that we have seen so far. Okay, next topic will be on the referential integrity, so we'll discuss that. And remember one point, in real time, so we will not, as a programmer, you will be not creating a table. The DBA will take care of creating a table or adding a new fields or dropping the table. So we will be filling some form and we will request them to create the specific tables with this so and so properties. But in order to create the table by them, you should know the properties of the data table. How many fields you need to be have, field name, what is there. So in this between, you will be setting up a meeting with the DBA and you'll be discussing with, he will give you some input comments or suggestions. Okay, maintain this file name, this standards as a naming and that. So then based on that, the table gets created. Okay, now we'll talk about something important topic, referential integrity. So we have a unique key, primary key and a foreign key. So these are called as a referential integrity. What does unique key means? It is a column where no duplicates are allowed. So table can have multiple unique keys. Primary key, it is nothing but it's a column where no duplicates. We have seen already the primary key, right? And it cannot contain a null value. Foreign key is nothing but it is a column of it's a group of columns which where the primary key is in other tables. So these are called as referential integrities. So for example, so you have created some table, employee table and department table. So in employee table you will have employee ID, name, salary and so on. And in department you will be having a department ID and department name. And in employee table also you will be seeing the department, which department you belongs. In department table you will be having the department ID and department name, right? So you will be creating this table. So let me do is I will go to Excel and let me say this is an employee table. Like here we have employee ID name, EMP name, let's say EMP salary, and then you have a department ID, right? So this is what is this? This is a employee table. Okay, this is an employee table. This is an employee table. So let me merge this together. You have employee number as 10001, 10002, 10003. Okay, employee name, say let's say like X, Y, Z, and salary let's say like 1000, 2000, something 3000. Okay, department ID let's say D0001, D0002 and D0003. Okay, and you also have some other fifth table that is called as department. Let's say you have department ID and you can have department name and something department location. Let's take, okay, when you say department ID, it should be similar to this 01 D1232 D1233, right? So department let's say HR, and this let's say finance, and let's say IT. Okay, location let's say India, let's say India, and let's say US. Okay, what I mean, it can be different, so just for an example I'm taking it as. So let's say here we have, and you have this table created, and you also have the department table created as well, right? So which one is a primary key? Employee ID is a primary key here. Okay, right. So unique key means when you're defining unique, so that field will be unique and it will be not available. So primary key means you are creating an index in a separate index database, right? So all the indexes are stored. Let's say employee ID will have an index file created with the name 1, 2, 3, right? So let's say EMP IDX is created. So with this holds this, and this again this will establish a connection between this. Okay, so this will have a connection. Sorry, these two tables will have a connections, index and this one, right? So now let's say departments. In department you have a department ID, department name and department location. So department ID, now we have a department ID, so this department ID should be will become the foreign key for this particular table, right? So that is what I'm going to tell here. So foreign key is nothing but it is a group of columns which is a primary key in a other table. So let's say department ID, okay, if I'm using this, so this makes the foreign key here. So if I'm using here, so this is a foreign key, so this will be deleted. This establishes a connection. This is a primary key here, and now this becomes a foreign key. This becomes a foreign key for this particular table. Okay, so now in this so we have some rules, that is deleting rules here. So on delete cascade, on delete restrict and on delete null. So what does it mean? What do you mean by on delete cascade? So when you are trying to delete this specific department, so this specific department from this is a child and this will be the parent, right? So when you are trying to delete this department 003 from the department, it should delete the parent as well. So that will delete. When a parent record are deleted, the child records gets deleted. So when there is a no department, what is the use of this, right? So that means this product should not be, this department should not exist at all. So that is the main thing on the on delete cascade. If you delete the record from department, a child from employee will also be deleted. On delete restrict, so when there is a dependency, so and if you are trying to delete this department, it will throw a message saying that okay boss, so you have already have the dependency in the employee table, so where your department ID is already used there as a foreign key, and now please don't delete this. So this is a warning message that it gives on delete restrict. Next, on delete set null. So after getting this deleted, so you are setting a null value to that specific, let's say, child after deleting this. Okay, so these are the set of deleting rules that we use, and also referential integrity constraints that we have discussed is unique key, primary key and a foreign key, right? The next topic will be on the views.